There are certain rules to surviving a horror movie. If they watch Prom Night, they save time. There's a formula, a very simple formula. What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to my channel, King Nikki TV, where I give you commentary on popular movies and TV shows. Before Scream 6 comes out, I will be going back and reviewing all of the Scream movies. And after my review on Scream 6, I will be ranking every movie in the Scream franchise, and I will be ranking the Ghostface killers. In this video, I will be reviewing the 1996 film Scream. If you are not familiar, then what have you been doing with your life? If you are not familiar, Scream is a slasher horror that follows Sidney Prescott. 1 year after the brutal murder and assault of her mother, Sidney finds herself and her group of friends stalked and killed off by a masked killer. I grew up a huge fan of horror movies. Obviously, if you're familiar with my channel, you know this. My mother is a huge movie buff, and in particular, horror was always her favorite genre. So I literally can remember sitting and watching horror movies at 3, 4, 5 years old. The only kid that I knew watching horror movies. Scream came out when I was 10 years old, and it contributed to me being a morbid child. I can distinctly remember seeing Scream for the first time when I was 10 years old. Scream is one of those movies that literally shifted horror culture, movie culture. Scream is on the Mount Rushmore of slashers, one of the most cleverly written movie scripts ever. We get a horror movie that is very much tongue-in-cheek commentary on horror at that time. A horror movie that pokes fun at the horror cliches and horror tropes and themes, the horror conventions that were actually kind of started by Wes Craven himself. For me personally, Scream has one of the best, if not arguably the best, opening scenes in a horror movie or movie in general. So I can distinctly remember seeing Drew Barrymore on the posters for Scream. And of course, Drew Barrymore is motherfucking Drew Barrymore. And one thing movies did not do was kill off their big name stars. So the movie opens with Drew Barrymore at home alone. You know, parents are away and she gets a phone call. We get a pretty typical slasher setup, right? A mass killer stalking teens. Because first of all, it's going to always be teenagers. But Scream is fresh and unique in how self-referential it is, how it takes what we thought we knew about horror at that time and plays to that. Your big name star gets killed first. In like the first 10 minutes of the movie. That intro was shocking, brutal, gruesome. I mean, you have parents who have to see their daughter freaking gutted, intestines hanging from the damn tree in the front yard. And yo, the mom scream as the camera is like going and running towards Drew Barrymore hanging, so iconic. But you know what I used to talk about all the time when I was a kid when this movie came out? Drew Barrymore and that damn phone. Baby was dying and being dragged across the line, still clutching that damn phone. That used to always be so trippy to me. That was just, I don't know, I was just always like, why is she still holding that damn phone? And what makes this killer and this opening scene different as well is the movie trivia. Get it wrong, you die. Get it right, you die. What I learned recently while researching behind the scenes stuff on the movie Scream was actually that Drew Barrymore was cast as Sidney Prescott, but Drew wanted to play the first victim of Casey instead because Drew Barrymore felt like it would make the audience feel like At that point, anything could happen. Man, so smart, so smart. That was just such, and for a movie that was trying to achieve what it was trying to achieve, for her to have the wherewithal to even say that, it definitely added to the tension and suspense of the film. There is a certain element of surprise, element of suspense that a lot of movies just cannot capture when you know good and doggone well they ain't finna kill that actor. Like, that person finna get killed off. And at the time, our cast were up and coming actors. And for me personally, I feel like Scream has some of the most likable teen characters. I want to say Scream has the most likable teenage characters in a slasher, in a horror ever. I love slashers, but y'all, I cannot stand teenagers. They are always written so obnoxious and dumb and freaking annoying. And even if I don't particularly hate the teens or dislike the teen characters in a movie, in a slasher or horror, I never particularly like them either. The thing that I have always loved about Scream is how much I like the entire freaking cast. I want to say Scream has the best group of teens in a slasher. Like, period. Better leave her alone, man. Leave her alone. Rose McGowan as Tatum is the triple-double OG. So freaking iconic. Rose McGowan literally oozes star power and charisma in this role. Such a fun, kick-ass character. Tatum is definitely that character who is going to die fighting. Now, they didn't fully do her justice with how she dies. As a kid, I will say I loved actually her death scene. I always loved that kill when I was a child. But even though I am the queen of suspending some damn belief when I'm watching a movie that I enjoy, at 10, even at 10, I knew that her getting killed in that damn garage door was beyond ridiculous. I loved it, but I thought it was ridiculous. But I'll give them props for including, a death that wasn't just, stabbed by a knife, which isn't a gripe of mine, but, they tried to do something different. Randy, though, is easily the fan favorite in Scream for me. For one, because Jamie Kennedy is just such a star and so freaking talented, but also because essentially Randy is us. He is the audience. He is the horror fan. I was literally Randy growing up. There are certain rules to surviving a horror movie. If they watch Prom Night, it's save time. There's a formula, a very simple formula. Gail is probably the prototype of my favorite type of character, which is the unlikable character that the movie gets the audience to like and even root for. And I think this works when it works in particular when your unlikable character is villain-esque, but not the villain. And although the Gail character was at her peak in this first Scream movie, she was definitely a favorite of mine. And I absolutely love the dynamic of Gail and Sidney. The role Gail played when it came to the murder of Sidney's mom, the rumors in the town about Sidney's mom, and the role she plays as Sidney herself is attacked in the sights of a killer, to then come in at the very end and save Sidney's life. The other fan favorite for me was Dewey. I absolutely positively loved Dewey so massively. Okay, what did Mom say? When I wear this badge, you treat me like a man of the law. Discovering at the very end, that Dewey was still alive was so triumphant. I love the mystery and the whodunit feel and aspect of Scream. One of my favorite scenes is the big party scene, right? After everyone except our core group of teenagers has left the party and Sydney has been attacked and she is at the front door of Stu's house and she has the gun, and we have Randy and Stu running up to Sydney, pleading with Sydney to help them, and they are both pointing the finger at each other. I love that aspect, even though, we knew, look, even at 10 years old, I knew who the damn killers were a mile away, but it was still an enjoyable and entertaining aspect, the way that they intertwined the mystery and put suspicion on different characters to no avail, because like I said, at 10 years old, I knew it wasn't Sid's and damn dad. I was with Randy when Randy and Stu are having a conversation and Stu was like, what about Sid's dad? Why can't the cops find him? And I was with Randy when he was like, because he's probably dead. His body will come popping up in the last reel somewhere. Look, child, there is no way you could not tell that Billy Loomis was freaking off. Even in scenes where Skeet Ulrich doesn't actually talk and the camera just pans to him, he looked like a psycho killer. Him and Stu. And the scene when Billy and his dad are at the police station talking to the sheriff, right? And his dad is like surprised to know that Billy went out the night before. Y'all, the way that Billy's own dad looks at him, like his facial expression, when Billy is like, Sheriff, I didn't kill anybody. Child, his dad was looking at him like, yo, my son might be the killer. Like, it was something in that scene with the way his dad was looking. Yes, Dad, it was your son. I was with Randy also. When Randy is like, are you trying to tell me that's not a killer? And who watches The Exorcist and suddenly gets the urge to hook up with your girlfriend? I always thought that was odd. No, Sid, you don't blame the movies. Movies don't make psychos. Movies make psychos more creative. Y'all have no idea how much of my childhood I spent just walking around saying the damn lines from Scream, and nobody knew what the fuck I was talking about. The chemistry and dynamic between everyone, the freaking talent, the charisma that this cast just oozes. Still, the most iconic character in Scream for me is Matthew Lillard as Stu. Face it, Sid. Your mom's no Sharon Stone. Stop it, Billy. I'm feeling a little woozy. I also love Stu's motive. I feel like it was so brilliant and dark. Oh, Stu, what's your motive? Peer pressure. I'm far too sensitive. Now, even though the fact of two killers was obvious and the fact of who the two killers were obvious, it doesn't hurt this film. In my opinion, they just did so much right with this film, and even though you know where it is going as far as the reveal of Ghostface, it is such a fun, entertaining ride along the way that it really doesn't even matter. Did you really call the police? My mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me. Yo, I freaking love Matthew Lillard. I love how Randy tells us the rules to surviving a horror, right? And excuse me, one of the big rules is you cannot have sex ever. And that was typically the horror movie trope, right? The sexed up teens die. Well, Sydney starts on her way as our virgin final girl, right? But she ends up having sex with Billy and still survives. Sydney, for me, is the second best final girl of all time. Sydney redefined the final girl trope. Sydney wasn't just saved at every turn. She earned her survival. She isn't just that final girl who can maybe, survive on luck or other people. The movie also doesn't require Sydney to spend the whole runtime making dumb decisions. Sydney kicks ass, and she thinks, and she tries to come up with ways to fight back and outsmart the killer, and she has sex. That just was so unheard of at the time, to have sex and survive the horror. There are really only two cons for me when it comes to Scream, and they are both very minute. For one, and I know I am in the minority here, but I wasn't blown away by the Ghostface mask. I mean, even at 10 years old, when Scream came out, I didn't find the mask scary at all. I actually thought it was more silly, but the older I get, I kind of feel like that may be the point. And the other thing that always really bugged me was the scene with Sydney in the girls' restroom at her school. It really just does not make any logic sense whatsoever. And this is a movie that is very grounded. You mean to tell me that Billy or Stu skips class, walks into the girls' restroom, just so happens to walk in when no one else is in there, and just waits in a stall because somehow they just know that Sydney is going to come in there and be alone in there? And isn't there more than one restroom in a high school? I mean, I ain't been in high school in 100 years, but ain't there more than one restroom? How did they know she would be in this one? But those two things for me, really small. I actually like the bathroom scene. It don't make no logic sense, but I enjoy the scene. There are really no cons for me that hurt the film. I enjoy the bathroom scene. It don't make a lick a bit of sense. And the Ghostface mask, it doesn't like bother me. It's not like a huge con. One thing I really hate though is any type of comedy in my horror. I really like horror to just be really dark. That's just me personally, but I feel like they have a bit of comedy in Scream, and it is done very brilliantly. I also love the foreshadowing that is done by the characters. Even Stu saying, "Face it, baby, these days you gotta have a sequel." Ultimately, I am that stereotypical Scream fanatic. I have been obsessed with Scream ever since I was 10 years old, and the movie has aged beautifully. Scream is forever iconic, and there was no better cast of teen characters in a slasher, in my personal humble opinion. There is one horror movie that for me has the second best cast of teen characters. Let me know in the comments what you think that horror movie might be. Now, and now that I think about it, I might have been 9 when this came out, because my birthday is at the very, oh no, I was 10, because if I remember correctly, Scream came out near Christmas. I could be wrong, don't quote me. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for supporting the channel. Make sure you have your post notifications on and look out for the rest of my Scream series. I'll see you in the next one.